out the Irish side. This is called Of Lennons Brennans Woodlocks and Quinns. I live in San Francisco, but I'm far from there today. I've made the leap and driven the drive to get to Galway Bay. I chose a day that's sunny, where you can feel the blues and greens from Galway Bay to Castlebar with 3 lakes in between. I love my San Francisco. You can hardly tear me away, but I've heard a special calling that brings me here today. I've heard the ghosts of my ancestors saying, "Won't you please pay us a visit? We have a little chore for you that we think you'll find exquisite." "What's that?" I cried in wonderment as I drove north beside Loch Moss. "Oh no," they said, "you must hear our tales before you're entitled to ask." It was only then that I could see my kin, all visualized with young freckled skin. The Lennons were here, and so were the Quinns, and the Woodlocks and Brennans had also dropped in. Arthur Lennon came forward and told of starvation in 1848, when potato crops failed and the farmers were jailed if they dared to speak out their fate. "It's the landlords," he cried. "They're the reason people died. They exported all our food to other places. All that we had left to eat was rotting beneath our feet when the English used our crops to stuff their faces." He stepped back for a moment and asked kind of sad, "You don't know what starvation is, do you, lad?" "No, sir," I admitted, though my young days were tough. When it came to our gullets, there was always enough. "Then I have something to say, and I want you to know this. The deaths from the famine were mostly injustice. English lords owned our land, and each year the arseholes divided our land into smaller parcels. For tenants, the land had shrunk to a smidgen. The only way to reverse it was to adopt their religion, because Catholic sons were parsed with a fraction, and those who converted got all of the action. When the potato crops failed, it became the last straw. Death took 1 among 4 to his claw. Meanwhile, the landlord, in the avoidance of poor tax, decided transportment would be our proper climax. They forced us to march with our every belonging, and they put us to sea as if we'd done the wronging. I've just one thing to ask," said Arthur from his grave. "With the English on our land, what is a slave?" Sarah Quinn took up the story and recited the tale of 8 weeks at sea and surviving the gale, surviving the lightning that struck the midmast, surviving, 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 at last. Out to America, to New York City's pier, then across to St. Louis, out on the frontier. And their son had a daughter, and her daughter gave birth to me. So the chain is not so very long since you sailed across that sea. "So that's it?" I asked of my ancestors. "You've brought me here to be grateful, for it's that I am for life itself, and for all of you who made it faithful." "Hell no, you twit," they said as one. "That's not the essence of your task. We told our stories to give you wit. Now you're entitled to ask." "Okay," I said, "I've come this long way. I'll lay flowers on your ancestors' graves." "It's not for that," they all spat, "that we put in for your commission. It's on those knaves, the landlords' graves, that we want you to be pissing." Since they asked so nicely, I did their bidding, starting with the tenant master, then up through all the land agents and English lords who oversaw the whole disaster. And as I did it, I heard Arthur Lennon sing, "I am pissing on the graves of the English landlords' graves. It took 160 years, but I'm pissing on their graves." Then back to the county of Galway for a final word of advice and a final thought from my ancestors that I thought would be quite nice. "Look to the present," they said. "We're all of us here. Go find you a relative and buy him a beer. America, Australia, all over this green land, you'll find Lennons and Brennans and Woodlocks and Quinns. Offer each of them your hand. We've been farmers and ditch diggers, launderers and clerks. We've been teamsters and clerics, and a few of us were jerks. We've held many positions, not all of them fetal. We've been bishops and cops, and the one who led the Beatles. So find you a pub and thumb through the white pages, then pick up a phone and don't ask what his age is. Just get him to join you, or better yet, her. for in the age of liberation that isn't a slur. And hold your mugs high, it is then that we'll join you, to past, present, and future, none of whom has a clue. And one last thing, don't you stay at an end. Instead, knock on the doors of your most distant kin. Say, I'm here from America, won't you let me come in? All you Lennons and Brennans and Woodlocks and Quinns.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.